As a coach, how can you teach your players to have a better baseball or softball IQ? All right, so if you're new here, I'm Coach Dan. I used to be a pro pitcher. I used to own a baseball academy. We used to have teams, and one of my big goals was to create smart baseball players and softball players. That was my goal. And that's one of the big goals in my channel here, right? This is my baseball channel. This video is for baseball and softball coaches and players alike. But you've probably watched my videos where I'm talking about pitch strategy. I'm talking about coaching techniques. I'm talking about all these different things that are not just the nuts and bolts, the hitting mechanics and pitching mechanics and sprinting mechanics of baseball and softball. The strategy is such an amazing part of it, and it really maximizes, I think, the enjoyment of the game. Like, baseball is so nuanced, softball is so nuanced. It's a game that you just keep learning more about as you grow, which is what I love about it. But also, it's a way for smaller players, less physically dominant players to really maximize their ability. If you're a second baseman type player or a small, pesky fast outfielder, you're not just going to go, 2 for 4 with 2 homers and impress everyone. You're going to probably hit a single to the right side. Maybe you beat out a swinging bunt and maybe steal second. You play amazing defense and you're still a really valuable player. There are players playing at high Division I levels who are pesky, awesome baseball and softball IQ kind of players. And so as a coach, you want to help players build that. And obviously, the more experience you had as a player, the better. But there's still a lot of tactics for relaying that knowledge to kids, because there's the time constraints, and then there's also just the operational constraints of how much time you get to talk with your players and explain this stuff when you're in practice or when you're in an actual game. So let's talk through a couple of those strategies that I think are really helpful if you want to try to get as much baseball or softball IQ instilled in your players. So the number one thing, and this is really, really important, this is a little counterintuitive, is that I think the head coach or whoever has the best baseball IQ on the coaching staff needs to be in the dugout the entire game. And that means you're not coaching third, you're not coaching first. And this is the reason. If you're coaching first or you're coaching third, sure, coaching third base is an important decision maker, right? The third base coach is going to hold guys or send guys, right? That's important. And they're going to pass out signs. However, if you really want to develop players, being in the dugout where you can say, hey, you see that fly ball deep to right? The runner on second base, because it was hit so high and it was clear after a little while that it was going to be caught, the runner on third base or the runner on second base shouldn't have been halfway. They should have started halfway and then actually gone back and tagged once they saw that ball was hanging up so long that it was going to be caught. Those are little nuanced baseball IQ things that if you're in the dugout with your players, you can be sitting there on the rail with them and still managing the game, but you can point out stuff like that. You can talk about pitch sequences with a couple of guys next to you. You can call people over real quick and say, hey, what was wrong about what that catcher just did? Why should he not have thrown to second, but instead should have thrown at third? Why did that catcher do this? Why did that first baseman do this? Watch this first baseman. Is he out of position or is he in the right position? There were so many little teaching moments that I was thankful that I had access to because I elected to stay in the dugout. And I would send my most competent decision-making assistant coach to third base. And then I would either have a player coach first base, or maybe I had a parent coach just volunteer and they would coach first. Coaching first base is a very unimportant position. You could put a stake and a paper plate, draw a smiley face on it, and it's going to do 90% of the job of the first base coach. If you don't like that opinion, sorry, but that's my opinion. So really, you should have your best baseball IQ coach in the dugout where they can engage with players, and they should know that that's their job. Talk pitch counts, talk pitch sequences, talk positioning, have them look at the hey, why is that shortstop standing right there right now? Is that shortstop in the right spot for double play position? Make them answer these questions in real time. There's so much stuff that goes on, and there's so many chances that get missed when the best baseball IQ guys are out on the field doing the basic, unimportant first and third base coaching. Let's talk about classroom sessions. So my big thing here is you need to show vastly more than you tell. Maybe it's 80% show and 20% tell. Unfortunately, classroom sessions and videos, these are tell. I'm not showing you what going first to third looks like and on which balls can go first to third. I wish I could do that, but I don't have a big enough video crew. It's complicated to make videos like that. And even then, setting that up in practice is nowhere near the same as actually doing that in a real practice scrimmage or a real game. So the classroom sessions can help, but they're really only just a little supplement, because even if you went through with a great diagram and a big whiteboard, and it's I've done a lot of videos like that, it doesn't really sink in that well until you see it happen in a game, right? You see the real humans running around in the dirt and the grass, and oh, that's how we do that, and that's why we do that, especially things that are really nuanced. Like first to third is a great example. When you run on first base and there's a ball hit behind them into right field or even into right center, good base runners go first to third much more often than mediocre base runners or bad base runners. And the question is, which base runners can read that ball off the bat and say, I'm going first to third, I'm never slowing down, I know that this is one that I can probably get to third. Maybe like 8 out of 10 times I'm going. That's stuff that's hard to teach, but that's the stuff that you want to teach, and that does win games. So doing your best with classroom sessions, I think those are important. I think having diagrams, as long as it's really visual, can definitely help. But I wouldn't put too much stock because it ends up being not worth, the juice is not really worth the squeeze when you're doing too much telling and not enough showing. So pick and choose your battles with how much time you have as a coach, because we haven't found tons and tons of value with that. I think there's a time and a place, but I think more of the asynchronous learning, like this kind of stuff, whereas if you want to really get a good bang for your buck, teaching kids like the visuals, like, hey, here's how we do bunt defenses, here's how we do this stuff, I would say make it asynchronously, which means they can watch it on demand. So make a YouTube video, right? Even if you just want to sketch it out on paper and just like film with your phone, have your, someone film while you're sketching it out on paper. It doesn't have to be high, production value, but then your kids can watch it. It's 3 or 4 or 5 minutes instead of like a 20-minute seminar. And now they can say, okay, we kind of get what we're going to do. And I think that's a better way of doing it rather than having to always call everyone in and have a big classroom session. Next, when you're in practice, challenge players to try and fail. And again, a really just good blanket example is first to third. If you want to teach your players how to get first to third on a single to the right side more often, what do? Set up the field, get the players in the outfield, get players in the infield, get base runners, rotate them through, hit balls over and over and over, hit soft liners, hit ground balls, hit balls right down the line, hit balls almost into center field. Challenge your runners to make the read themselves and figure out their own limits. And the thing here is you have to incentivize them to basically like positive encouragement only. So there's a reward for getting to third base safely, but there's no downside if they're thrown out, because you don't want them to be timid, and that's what's going to happen in a game when everyone's watching. They don't want to do the wrong thing and be out. Here, it's like, I want you to be reckless, but still try to make this a smart decision. Try to be safe, but be super aggressive and be reckless. Figure out what your limits are, because then they're going to take off for third on one they think they can make it, and they're going to get thrown out. Then they're going to take third on one they don't think they could make it. They're going to hold up and be like, oh, I should have gone, right? They're going to figure this stuff out. They're going to figure out how far into the gap it has to be hit. They're going to make appraisals of how good the outfielder's arms are. So rotate outfielders around, right? Who can really throw a guy out? Who can't? And if you know the guy or girl in right doesn't have a very good arm, hey, we're going first to third on everything, right? Let's see how much, a player with a mediocre arm can get one of our runners. These are important things to show and tell, and that's where you have to set this up in practice and spend a good amount of time on these situations where you're testing kids. And again, tell them to be reckless and aggressive in pursuit of the other thing so that they figure out where their limits are. Next, even if you're not going to be in the dugout as the head coach, encourage your players, chatter with them, ask them questions, have your first base coach, periodically come over just as like part of your overall plan and ask players questions. Hey, what did you think of that 2-1 pitch? Was that a smart pitch call? Hey, what did you think of that ball hit to left? You think you could have stretched that into a double or stretched that into a triple? Engage with your players as much as you can, and get them to watch the game. Encourage them to watch the game in a new way. If they know that you're watching for all these little things, so you keep pointing them out, they're going to be more interested in watching the game rather than just BSing with their friends. And look, having fun in the dugout is important. I want players to enjoy being in the dugout and laugh and make jokes. I did that all the time, but there's this really amazing balance that you can strike as a player where you're locked in and you're learning the game and you're watching, but in those little bits of downtime, you can make a joke, you can carry on your conversation that you just stopped for 12 seconds and now you're going to pick it up for another 12 seconds, right? But encourage a game watching atmosphere. That's a really important thing as a coach if you're trying to create that higher baseball or softball IQ. And lastly, let players call their own pitches. I have a full video I'll link to below about this, but I think it's a travesty that coaches are calling the game for players. And if you don't like hearing me say that, I'm sorry, I stand by it. You can't expect to learn any skill at a high level when someone else is doing it for you. And coaches say, well, I explain it to them afterwards. No, you don't. You don't explain every single pitch call you make to them afterwards. You just don't. and you don't know what the pitchers are feeling. The pitchers are going to see things that you don't from the dugout. I know because I've been in the dugout and I did not call pitches. And I can tell you, I can barely tell what's a ball and a strike laterally because the point of view is not very good from the dugout. I can't tell the nuanced thing that my catcher can see that my pitcher can see. So my job as a coach was to educate my catchers and my pitching staff. These are the rules, the general rules of pitch calling, right? Here's why you go hard in and soft away as a general rule. Here's why when a hitter has a loopy swing, you can bust him in more often. So look for that. Here's why in general on 1-1 counts and 2-2 counts and 3-2 counts and 0-0 counts, all the even counts, we're generally going to pitch to the halves of the plate. Here's why it makes a lot of sense to pitch a little bit differently when there's no one on first base, when we have a base open, and maybe there's runners on second and third. These are all general things you can teach to your pitchers so they have a good idea of what to throw when, and then you let them do it. Like, I did not call my team's games. And it wasn't that, oh, we're just throwing away our season now because now we got a bunch of kids calling it. They did fine. My pitchers did fine. And it's not like I had a 2-hour classroom session with them every day because I didn't. But I spent enough time to build the framework, and I treat them like adults. This is your future, pitchers, catchers. This is you guys. Go out there and do it. Go call the game. But throw the pitch that you believe in because I want you to think through it. And your only rule is you have to have a reason, a really good reason for everything you threw. Not just like, oh, I wanted to mix it up. Oh, I wanted to like keep him guessing. That's not a reason. But like, oh, I went hard up and in on that fastball because I felt like his swing was a little loopy and he didn't look like he was very confident. That's a reason. It doesn't matter what the reason is. As long as they've got one, they're thinking through the game and they're building their baseball or softball IQ. All right. So thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. If at least one of these tips spurred some idea, then that's a win for me helping you. All right. Thanks so much. If you have any more questions, leave one in the comments below. Check out my online courses and my books, which you'll find in the description as well. And I'll see you here in the next video.